Now, when installing an aquarium, it's really important to check that the aquarium is level. And one thing you'll find, if you move the aquarium a little bit, left, right, front, back, sometimes that can drastically affect how level the tank is. So you need to get it in position and then you can level it. Now we're going to put a canister filter on this aquarium. And one of the first things you want to do with a canister filter, or any filter for that matter, is you want to open it up. You want to get familiar with what's inside it. And you want to take everything out of the plastic, because most of the time these units will often come with media in plastic bags that obviously need to be removed before we get started. It also has got a UV clarifier in it. Now, it needs to be replaced every year or so. So it's a 9-watt tube that you put inside it, because the tube will end up deteriorating to the point where you do need to replace it. Now, as far as the UV is concerned, I will usually not turn the UV on for a month or so whenever I do anything major to the tank, because I don't want the UV killing off any of the good bacteria that I'm wanting to establish in the filter. The UV is basically there to help make sure you get very crystal clear water, but I will not run it whenever I'm doing anything like setting a new tank up, because I want the good bacteria to establish in the tank and I don't want the UV hampering that. Added a bit of KH and GH to the water. So when a sample comes down to the shop, we'll check it and see if the GH is right. I'd rather add less and add more if I need to. And same with your KH. So we'll check on that when we come to the shop. Now, as far as adding fish are concerned, it's really important you add a little bit of fish, maybe 4 to 6. Then you wait a week or two. Then you bring a sample of water and a video. Then you add another 4 to 6 fish. Then you wait a week or two. Then you bring a sample of water and a video. Then you add another 4 to 6 fish. Then you wait a week or so. And then we are able to slowly raise the amount of fish that are in there. And what we need is the good bacteria to grow in the filter. And if the good bacteria grows in the filter to break down the waste from your fish, then you're in business. But if you chuck too many fish in and there's not enough time for the bacteria to grow in the filter, then you end up with ammonia and nitrite, and that's an imbalance, and therefore Mother Nature will say, enough for you, and Mother Nature will kill some of your fish. She'll either knock off a couple or she'll send a disease and wipe a whole lot of them out. But you cannot break nature's rules of balance. So you add a little bit of fish, wait a week or two, get it tested. Add some more fish, wait a week or two, get it tested. Bring us a video, let us see what's in the tank. Now, as far as mixing fish are concerned, we're going to add some fish, and at the start we expect them all to hide. It's normal for the fish to hide, because in the wild, if there's not many fish around, to the fish, that means danger. As you get more fish, the fish feel safer, and then they will tend to get along better, and they'll tend to use the fish tank. If they're hiding all the time, then you'll find that they'll be more territorial, they'll be more stressed, and they'll be more aggressive. Adding more fish makes the fish feel safer, makes the fish less aggressive. Now, how well your fish get along is pretty much governed by the boss of the tank. Now, if you put all of the fish in when they're little, then they'll end up with a hierarchy. This one's the boss, that one's second boss, that one's third boss. And when they're little, they'll work out their hierarchy. But if you put in big fish, they have to work out their hierarchy, but then they're big enough to damage and hurt each other. If you let them do that when they're small, there's a much higher chance that they're not going to hurt each other. If you add fish together when they're young, in general, they won't know any different to each other, and you'll find that they tend to get along much better. If you add fish that are already big and already established and already mature, the chance of them getting along is much less, because they'll all have their own established ways of being, which may or may not get along with each other. The bigger fish are more likely to be able to hurt each other, and they're going to be less tolerant of each other. Just like you can have a rock wheeler grow up with a cat, and that cat that the rock wheel has grown up with can be a friend of the dog and they can get along really well. But mind you, that dog might eat your neighbour's cat, but it doesn't eat your cat because it's used to it as it grows up. And that can be the case with the fish too. Sometimes you can see, for example, a very little electric yellow chasing a big venustus. And often that's little brother, big brother syndrome. So what can happen is you put all the fish in when they're small, they all get to know each other, they all get familiar with each other, they all get to work out their hierarchy. And then if little brother is the venustus, for example, and the electric yellow is big brother, and they sort out their differences when they're little, quite often when little brother grows, next thing you know, it's 5 times bigger than big brother, sorry. But it doesn't really realize that it's bigger and stronger now. So it's not uncommon to have a fish that's very small chasing a much bigger fish, because that's the way their hierarchy was when they were young. And then the bigger fish never realize that it's bigger and stronger, and it can potentially be scared of that same little fish because it may have had a experience when it was younger, and then it's never realized that the tables have turned. So putting the fish in when they're young. And the other thing is, more fish you have, the better the fish tend to get along. If you don't have many fish and those fish grow up with not many fish, you can get like only child syndrome, where that fish doesn't want to share. It doesn't want to share its territory. It wants everything its own way and for itself. So therefore, you're more likely to have behavioral problems if you have only child syndrome. So the more fish you put in, the more likely they're going to get along. And also, if you get an aggressive fish and he's in a bad mood, he'll chase that one, then chase that one, then chase that one, then chase that one, then chase that one. And then nobody really cares about him because the aggression has been dispersed. If there's not many fish and that fish is in a bad mood and it goes and picks on the same fish continually, it can actually wear it down and kill it. I don't think any aquarium should be without this. A bladed magnet cleaner is one of the best things you'll ever have. They do an awesome job of cleaning off the algae, but the main thing with all these is you don't want, this sand's probably okay, but you don't want chunks of gravel getting underneath here, because if you get chunks of gravel, you can actually scratch your glass. My guess is this probably won't. I probably think that's too fine, but like a chunk of gravel caught under a strong magnet like this is a great way to scratch your glass. Now, if you just kept it in like that position, what we're sort of wanting is the razor blade to be out of the water if possible. And that way you could actually easily keep this in a position like that, for example. Leave that there all the time. And then whenever you see a bit of algae on the glass, just give it a once over. Because algae is really, really good to get off unless you let it get stubborn. The longer you leave your algae on the tank, the harder it is to get off. And considering this is a cichlid tank, I would definitely get some catfish. I'd think about getting Siamese algae eaters. I would definitely get bristlenose, if not plecostomus, and fish that are going to help clean your algae. The other thing is that this tank's got a very good light on it. So if you are getting algae, the other thing you can do is just turn your light off for a while. That's a really good way of reducing your algae, considering you don't have live plants or anything to be concerned about. So turning your light off for a while keeps your algae down, or just reduce your light times. I really want the light on when you're likely to be enjoying the tank. If you're asleep, the light's off. If you're out, the light's off. Less light, less algae. It's important that your air pump has a check valve, and the check valve will stop the water going back into the pump in the event that the pump turns off and it siphons back. So you must have a check valve. Now, the check valve will only work in one direction, and if it's like this particular one that's decided not to work at all, you must replace it, and you must have check valves. Otherwise, you risk water going into your pump, which isn't as fun as you'd think.